this. Finally in StarCraft. On Oxide for game number 1 of a best of 5 TVZ. In the bottom left, as the blue Zerg, we have Elazer. In the top right, as the red Terran, it is Team Liquid's Clem. Finally. Should be a good TVZ. Elazer took out Hero Marine to get here. And Clem just took out Creed, who took out Elazer, which is a big surprise, but Clem was still the better TVTer. Took me some time to swap over to this scene because, of course, I was reading Reddit as we were waiting quite some time. And let me hit you guys with this one, all right? And, you know, there's a 2-minute delay, so. So I replied in a thread how, like, I'll try to pronounce, son of a bitch. I'll try to pronounce Juggernaut correctly, but it's probably gonna go the way of croissant. People are gonna make fun of me no matter what I do. And then someone put a Reddit thread about a line in Orange is the New Black, and I believe it's also a line that's been used by real people, where if Americans, generally white people, can pronounce Tchaikovsky? Is it Tchaikovsky? Is that Russian? Oh, actually, oh, fuck, I just assumed that was Russian. Is it? Oh, it was Russian. Okay, I got that right anyways. And Michelangelo, which I do say correctly. Do I say it like an Italian, though? I don't know about that. And Dostoevsky? They can learn to say Jagannatha. And, as you just heard, I actually can't pronounce 2 of those names. And the third one, I don't know if I say Michelangelo like the Italians say Michelangelo. Maybe you guys can inform me if I do or not. But do you think it really is the equivalent of disrespecting someone? Like, if they're like, my name is X, and you're like, oh, I can't pronounce that, I'm just gonna call you Sally. Do you think that's actually the equivalent of me not being able to pronounce Jagannatha correctly and just saying Jagannatha? Because I don't. If someone wants to be called something, their name, like, yes, I would try my hardest to pronounce it correctly, and I'd ask them to explain it to me and whatever. But we're talking about a map and or a mythological reference that is an uncommon and archaic word even in the Indian languages. Don't think it's the same. Anywho, that's my rant. That's my warm-up to this cast. Let me guys know your thoughts. Is it the same? Is it not? What do you think? So we got Clem going for a 1-1-1, so no 3cc build yet, but in the best of 5, I gotta imagine he'll throw it out. Elazer, known for his aggression, could have very well taken a map or 2, or even played all 3 games with an aggressive build against Hero Marine. I would not be able to tell you, I did not get into the game. But it is Clem in this particular game on Oxide. He's the one going to be aggressive first. We got an armory on the way, and a medevac as well as 3 Marines to go ahead and tuck into that medevac and help out just the tiniest little bit. And I'm not sure that Elazer knows about this. So you can kind of suspect something. Excuse me. If you see there's more than 2 supply depots and not a 3rd command center, you can kind of suspect something because a 3cc wouldn't have any supply depots at the front, and a 1-1-1 into 3rd cc would have usually a 3rd cc at the front. Some maps are different than others, though. So that might be like the tiniest little suspicion. It's a little bit late, isn't it? His queens are in a nice concave on creep, trying to tackle this before it gets too close to his hatcheries and his drones. He's also trying to spread out the Hellbats. If there's 2 of them off to the side, Ling's getting us around on that is actually very doable. That's exactly what Clem's trying to counter micro against, making sure to keep all of his units actually together. This one Hellbat, for instance, could be easily taken down, but not actually getting on top of. More Hellions are reinforcing. Elazer is desperately trying to remake his queens, build more Lings, and take the longest time possible, I guess, before his drones start to get hurt. For Clem, it doesn't really seem like he's thinking, I'm going to end the game, I'm going to end the game, I'm going to end the game, right? But he is trying to take down as many queens as possible, which is still a good trade. I mean, this is actually lasting a very long time, and keep in mind, during this entire time, Clem is building a 3rd CC, Banshees, and more SCVs. Elazer is only now getting back into building drones. So, while that was the proper way to defend the Hellbat attack, if you don't know it's on the way, if you know it's on the way, then, you know, get banelings out of roaches, whatever. If you don't know what's on the way, try and get those concaves, try and split up the army, try and focus fire down the medevac, and just try and get as many lings as possible. It is still not very ideal. It takes you a very long time, and a lot of that larva is going into lings, not economy, whereas the Terrans, we are truly privileged. We can build both army and SCVs. Isn't that great? So Clem should be feeling pretty okay with that. Now I guess his downside, keep in mind, is that his 3rd CC was later than it usually would be for a 1-1-1 setup, and then also his barracks are a lot later than they would be because he built like 10 Hellions in total. 8 plus 4, so actually 12 Hellions in total. That's a long time for his factory to be kept on that reactor, so keep that in mind. There are actually 2 Banshees finding a little bit of a weakness. The Spore Crawler is going to be maneuvered to the middle to try and help those queens that the layer's not quite done. They need something to detect these damn things. Both Banshees live, and oh, look at that. A Hellion drop as he came back home to repair a very weak medevac. Clem would think about doing that.
Thank you for your monetary support.
Thank you very much. 47 is for the $5. Been busy, but that's what binging on caster calls is for. Oh, thank you. Hope you're enjoying it. Now the 3rd CC on the way. With Hellion still alive and the Banshees providing extra damage, I mean, it's possible that Elazer has sent his lings across the map to deny this, but I would say unlikely and also not the biggest deal even if he did. Clem going up to 3 more barracks immediately is clearly going into an 8 racks setup because we can count 5 plus 3. And that means that he's being, so let's say, very dedicated. Sometimes if you kill a 4th and deal some damage with a drop, it's actually playable. You can macro out of it, but it is not incorrect to say that this is all in. Your 4th CC, if it ever does come down, is very, very late, and you don't have a lot of that key splash that would actually help you the later the game goes. You're all working off of 1 factory. Pairing up a little drop with Hellbats and a couple of Widow Mines. A little bit surprising for Elazer, who does not have his Banelings quite ready to go. 7 of them are finishing, however. Looks like his difficult hooks is only about 80% done, but enough queens, enough lings, and some okay micro should be able to handle this. Loses the queens, will eventually push this back. Yeah, he's gonna clean it up. And Clem is forced to get out of there. Combat Shield is about to finish up. We got +1 missile starting. Wait, what? Did you get a Roach War? Oh, Hydralisks, right, yeah. Clearly not a Spire, went into some Hydralisks, so we could even see Lunkers as we go on. The Lunkers. Burrow also being committed to. You know, I get my hopes up about that sometimes, and it's like, oh, never mind, I didn't mean to get Burrow. And I'm like, oh, it feels bad. But look at this. Clem actually went up to 8 barracks, but then immediately got a 4th command center and a 2nd factory. So not doing the 8 racks all in. I gotta be real, it is a little bit of an odd thing to have happen, but I do think he's also kind of using the start. Oh, the micro? Sorry. I do think that he's kind of also adapting to the start of the game where there was the Hellbat attack and he made that many Hellions and that many Hellbats. So maybe that's why he threw down 3 extra barracks first, because he just had the cash. So it's not the Iraq's all in then. This is still not the best, fastest timed 4th CC, but it is on the way as opposed to being entirely pushed off. And that 2nd factory, again, might not be the fastest, most bestest time for a 2nd factory in Drilling Claws, but it is being used. So forget what I said earlier. It is still going to be pretty consistent pressure coming out from Clem with his drops. Thank you, wouldn't mind, for injuring those medevacs. But it's not going to be an all-in. Elazer trying to set up a 5th base. Actually, the 2 Banshees still alive and actually have been repaired. This Clem's, of course, going to do that. They're going to take out the 5th hatchery. Seems like they will. Splitting off of Creep and take a good engagement against the Banelings. I mean, every Baneling gone for that. Pretty good. Elazer is starting to lose out, not just in the fights overall, but I think he also just can't spend his money. The Queens have been so busy helping against the Hellbats, helping against the drops, that they have not been injecting. And that is how Elazer might lose this game. Not able to spend 600. Desperately trying to, though. Starting a +2 missile, finishing a +2 carapace, getting to an infestation pit. No lurker den, though. And it is arguable that they're actually even effective until you can get to those hive upgrades. Another split, but this time on creep leaves only a few Marines left over, and Clem's not going to push his luck, but another drop off to the right side, seen by Elazer. He is quick to respond to it. Looks like he saved the hatchery as well from the Banshee, so that is alive. Not necessarily well, but it is going to continue to survive as Elazer has pushed this back. So the creep shot on the left side looking pretty good. It's going to warn him of any engagement happening over there. The right side's a little bit more of that scary point, but even creep continuing to develop on the right is going to really help Elazer out. And while Elazer still is struggling to spend his money, it's actually not because of larva this time. There we go, 38 more lings are on the way, but these banelings not really getting amazing connections. A tank helping out, but also some banelings are stuck behind the hydras. It's very awkward for Elazer, who has a lot of his army off to the right side, now desperately trying to come back to this base, is not going to be able to defend it. Clem, I mean, he's going to find a weak point somewhere. And it finally really happened, but Elazer, he could give up this base and still live, right? It's not great, but it's better than trying to now defend it and being pointless, right? And now he could also get to Hive and Lurker if he can continue holding on. It is a little worrying, though. I mean, not only did he just lose a base that he really needed to mine from, and he's going to need as the game goes on, he's also continuing to, I don't know, just I mean, be under a lot of pressure, right? Like, Clem could take a game-ending engagement. In fact, this might be it. Elazer going too far off of creep with not enough units. He's going, oh my god, he burrowed banelings, I didn't even see that shit. Okay, well, neither did Clem. Now, a lot of Marauders were involved right there, so the Marauders don't quite die, and that is still a lot of bio for Elazer to deal with. He's at 80 workers, but only 66 army supply. Where is it anyways? Lings coming forward now, no banelings available. Could get into the nooks and crannies of the bio, but is that going to be enough? It doesn't look like it. And the Hydras definitely can't stand up to this on their own. And yep, well, looks like one domino fell, and then the rest of the Elazer fell. GG. Clem, not gonna let him get to those lurkers. Not gonna deal with that shit. Kills him before Hive really gets started. GG. Do you think lurkers give good belly scratches to cats? No. Do I think lurkers like belly scratches? Maybe. I think that'd be kind of cute. It'd kind of be like giving a belly scratch to a tarantula, though. And, I don't think you want to do that. And not because tarantulas are scary, actually, but tarantulas are actually very fragile. I don't think lurkers are fragile, though. So, they could probably rough and tumble. Next map being Lightshade. Now I have a lot of opinions on this one. In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, we got Elazer. And in the top left, is the red Terran. It is Clem. I was going to tell you guys a secret. All right, there's like 360 of you. Here's a secret, all right? Can't tell anyone. But I have made it a point to write down the rush distance of the maps this year. I started this year with Katowice. Or Katowice, or Katowice. And I've also written down the dimensions of the map in order of, you know, largest to smallest, and fastest to slowest, and all that good stuff. So you've heard me use it in a cast. I don't know how to correct co-casters. How to generally correct people when they say things like, this is the largest map in the map pool. Not that they said that about Lightshade, but, you know, you get what I'm saying, though, right? Like, they'd be like, oh, yeah, Juggernaut is a really, really large map. And I'll be like, well, you know, comparatively. Yeah, I guess. You know, I don't know how to do it. So that's a secret that you guys can have. And maybe you can give me some tips of how to kindly and not awkwardly be like, well, you know, it's actually like the 5th largest. Because I talk a lot about Lightshade. I've talked a lot about it because, you know, when I first looked it up during the beginning of the season, it was on stream too. So some of you guys probably saw it. When I first looked it up, I was like, wow, really? Same rush distance as a submarine. That was I would not have expected that because everyone thinks submarine is so short and so scary to play on. So not only was I surprised that it happened at all, I was also surprised to see that Lightshade continues to be chosen. But it is a very different map than submarine, despite it being also a rush map. But then these other maps, I wanted to make it a point to be able to describe short versus fast versus large versus, you know, easy attack paths versus, you know, basically we use words kind of like a throwaway. Like this is large, this is small, and sometimes we mean this is fast or this is slow. Or we mean, you know, later down the line, you know, we're talking about 5 bases versus 5 bases, then yes, the map might actually seem extremely large. Or sometimes we're talking about the amount of bases on a map. We're talking about, like, this is just really one of those maps that can go for a very long time. Sometimes it's because the maps are actually very large, take a long time to get across, left to right, up, down, and sometimes it's because they have a billion minerals. So, kind of encourage that late game scenario. I'm trying to get better at being more specific because I think it was last year that during Montreal, which prompted me to make sure to know it for Katowice, that the map makers were kind of throwing up their hands and being like, no, you're not, like, that's not true. Like, the map is only as fast as this other map. And having to eventually look up the stats and concede, like, oh, yeah, okay, that's a good point. That's our bad. Anyhow, Lightshade I thought was fascinating because of the rush distance. But also, as you've heard me talk about in my stream, on the DreamHack stream, I think it is so obnoxious for Terrans. You know, for some reason we think short equals Terran, and there's reasons for that for sure, but it's you know, it's so much more complicated than that. And I'd actually even say that Lightshade, just to me, feels so uncomfortable, I wouldn't want to play it. I would not suggest my Terran protege to pick it. But here we are, with everyone still choosing Lightshade. And here we are with Clem going for a fusion core. Now, this is after a 3rd CC, so it is not super cheesy, but it is very surprising. Very surprising. And Elazer just lost his Overlord that could even get close to scouting it was a fusion core. So I'm not sure Elazer knows about this at all. So he saw a 3rd CC, and he's probably thinking he's going to go up to a 2-1-1 because he didn't see the starport. You know, this right now does look like a 2-1-1 setup. Because it is so popular, I would not be surprised if Elazer is just assuming that it's a 2-1-1 setup, and that's going to be very awkward when a battlecruiser appears. Clem, being a little out of meta right now, is doing an old build, one that we would recognize from earlier this year and even expect from earlier this year, but now I'm not sure Elazer would. And Elazer has more things to worry about as well, as the 6 Hellions get into the natural after threatening the 3rd and back into the main base as well. And this is super awkward. I love the drone pool and the evolution chamber block to try and mitigate the damage, but it's still so much to deal with. 11 drones go down, you know, larva being used on lings, not drones, and then yes, the distraction, it's huge. The distraction, Elazer is not going to think about what his opponent's about to appear with, and that's going to be a battlecruiser. There's no spore crawlers. There are a decent number of queens, now spreading creep between the main and the natural, but the battlecruiser is done. I'm waiting for it to transport right into that main base. He got into every base, so he knows where there aren't spore crawlers. And there it is, the battlecruiser. I mean, Elazer had no idea. He just didn't. And it's not like it's tap out time. Although I think if this was a ladder game, you might just go ahead and cut your losses, call it quits, play again later. Because it is really bad for him to have to deal with those Hellions and then have to deal with his battlecruiser. It's going to take a long time. He's really going to have to change his perspective on the way this game is played out. And then I haven't even talked about the fact that Clem's going into mech. Does Elazer know he's going to go into mech, or is he thinking, oh, a cheeky little battlecruiser into bio? Problems for Zerg. I messed that up. I can't believe I messed up on the third one, you know? God damn it. Anyways, lots of problems with the Zerg. Seeing that more Hellions is still not quite a given that it's mech anymore. You know, Terrans have to protect their thirds and their fourths and whatnot, so... Actually, that might have clued him in. Bio Terrans will add on Hellions after sacrificing them because you don't want to get immediately counterattacked, but Elazer dealt with those Hellions and then immediately slapped on a Roach Warren. I think he's at least giving credit to the idea that it could be mech, although... actually, it looks like he saw 6 gases, which this quickly, yeah, pretty much means mech, I think. Because honestly, if you're going in a bio, I think it's only 5 gases for a long time. Anywho. So Elazer knows, and he's going to be adding on a Roach Warren, trying to get up his bases. I mean, trying to make up for the earlier damage, as well as just the late knowledge of this game. And while he's going to be able to do that, he's going to lose out a lot on the mid-game power that you would have if you knew, okay? If this was the mech meta, and Zerg players were like, of course, it's this, and then this. Like, they're so much more streamlined in their builds. But when they're kind of like, oh shit, they're not going to have a streamlined build. They're going to miss out on the power of the mid-game. And while the game's going to go on to kind of the mid-late game, just because mech doesn't push before that, it's not going to be the ideal setup for Elazer here. Maybe talk about size and scale. That's interesting. I think I'd have to define scale every time I said it, though, because I certainly wouldn't, upon first hearing it, think of the relative space between different elements, but that would be a useful phrase. That's a Cyclone Hellion, so not necessarily game-ending pushes, right? But with Cyclone Hellion, you can actually get out on the map and engage, where it's much more awkward to do so with tanks. Not only that, going up to 3 battlecruisers, as you would expect with mech, means that the queens have multiple jobs to do, and killing 3 battlecruisers is not really capable of it. It's like hiring an intern from high school when you need a guy with a PhD. You know, you need those corruptors out to do this, and Elazer is not going to survive the first push, so he actually does not get to go in the late game. The Spire was on the way. He knew he needed corruptors. It just did not come out fast enough. Does take down one of the battlecruisers, a little bit late on the teleport there from Clem. Now going to teleport away. Scans and sees another base mining too, so maybe like, oh, I'm going to win, and then realizing, okay, not quite. That is important. That was looking awfully scary right there. But Elazer has kind of saved a lot. Oh, I take that back. Ooh, Flame Hellions. Right into that drone line. 15 drones go down, and the Hellions mostly escape. Elazer, I think, also scouted this fourth with roaches, and then couldn't do anything about it because it was lifted and flying over. Ah, geez, Elazer. Taking so much damage there. You know, if you're facing someone going into tanks and they're waiting until like a 180 supply push, then you get, you know, 5-6 minutes to do what you want, you know, deal with a couple of harassing units, but that's kind of it. But if you're facing someone going up to 3 battlecruisers and doing Hellion Cyclone, and yeah, you don't really get just time to be uninterrupted. There has been a lot of interruptions here. Fungals would have been amazing, but they're not going to come down. These infestors do not have pathogen glands. They were just going to wait. They're going to be patient. And now they don't have fungal. There we go. Now they have fungal, but it's a bit late, isn't it? It's a bit awkward. It's Ox. And he only gets 1 Hellion with his first fungal. Second fungal! That's much better. I think at this point, Elazer's trying to push him back far enough that he has time to breathe to replace, because he's not quite dying yet, but... These desperate times, man. Corruptor's trying to take down a second battlecruiser, take that out of the harassment equation, and they do get it. So only 1 battlecruiser left. That's, you know, a little bit easier to deal with. But Elazer has not been winning these ground wars at all. And 1 infester. That's it. That's the only fungal he'll have in like 30 seconds. I love the idea of the burrow. Maybe Tumbling Claws could have come down as well. Or just burrow to half out the infestors, you know? But this seems like this is finally the game-winning push. Clem's got 4 bases going on 5. He could even add in a couple of tanks and just like always have tank, like 1 or 2 tanks up here I think would be kind of cool. Right now he's using Widow Mines to the same effect, I guess. But either way, he's going to be winning this game. Big surprise for Elazer, right? Like, he just was not expecting this opener, and he was not expecting mech. I could call this like it's super, super, super interesting and super, super close, but it's really not. So we are just waiting for Elazer to either get like a big wraparound with his lings, but he's not getting so far, or to tap out. Last battle cruiser goes down, again, making life a little bit easier for him, but honestly, even the Widow Mines are starting to get kind of crazy. There's a lot of Widow Mines, and the Overseers have, I guess, been taken out every time he's gotten one, either by the lock-ons or by the Widow Mines themselves, so they're getting tons of 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th hits, and that's going to be it. GG. Clem with the 2-0. It's a best of 5, so it's not over yet, but Clem really surprised Elazer there. Just wait a couple minutes and say this chat straight. So this map's kind of short. So this map is the longest map. No, it's not like it's ever been that bad, you know? And I think it does just come down to describing it in the correct way as opposed to being kind of vague. I think that was the map maker's biggest problem with us last year. Not just us, I think, but the pro gamers as well. Because that's, you know, last year there was like this whole like war, this like mini war that was going on. Like a Korean war where like some people talk about it, but other people are like, oh, right, that happened. Between the map makers and the pros. And it felt like one of the things was that like everyone was saying the word big or small, and the map makers were like, it's the same rush distance. So it's really just about articulating exactly what you mean as opposed to just being vague. And ultimately that is kind of like it's kind of unimportant, you know? I mean, I think it is better. Not being vague is better, right? But it's not so important or so bad to be vague. As long as you're explaining it in any way, shape, or form. In the bottom right, on Death Aura, we have the blue Zerg Elazer. On the top left is the red Terran. Up 2-0, he is Clem. Don't usually go mech with BC because you get the armories. Yes and no. For a while, it was extremely common to only go battlecruiser mech. So 3 battlecruisers with mech. But then there was also the 1 battlecruiser into bio build that I know Special, I think, still uses, I would say, of like people that I can think of recently. Well, then Clem just used it. Well, no, Clem just used 3 battlecruisers. Anyways, but yeah, it's not a given that because you see a battlecruiser, it'll be mech. And it's also not a given that you'll see you'll see battlecruisers because it's mech. Is there any way that one could get these replays? Nope, you gotta be a caster to get the replays. And to be a caster, you have to apply to be a caster. Describe maps in length, girth, and curvature. Well, I'm not really sure how curvature is going to pop up on maps. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Does it depend on if it's like a winter map or a beach map, you know? Does it get shorter or longer? Anyways. So right now, kind of paying attention to whether a second gas comes down, and with no second gas, you see that a CV going for third CC. Clem really changing up how he develops from a third CC, though. So I'd say it's more likely than not the Zerg player figures out it's a third CC. It's definitely not always. Certainly not always, but it does feel like 60-40, maybe, on like seeing the third CC. Because, you know, for instance, if there was a second Overlord, or the first Overlord was over here, like, oh, easy peasy. Easy. Now, a lot of Zerg players don't have the second Overlord over here. They do exactly what Elazer is doing. But then there's also the whole supply depot thing I was talking about, right? Where third CC doesn't need supply depots. And until someone, you know, does a really cool, tricky build, you know, I think it's going to be the case. Or if the Lings get in, right, that can happen. And see no supply depots. Anywho, what is a little more questionable for the Zerg. So first step, scout the third CC or not third CC. Preferably fast, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Second step, what does it go into? Is it Hellions? Is it Marines? We saw Sol go into Marines versus Solar on this map. Is it into a tank? Are you trying to bait me into attacking you? Is it actually out of starport? Or does it go into a bunch of barracks? Well, in this case, Elazer gets Lings in and sees exactly what he wants to see. So third CC, second barracks, now only just now the starport. It is into that follow-up 2-1-1. The third step for the Zerg player would be seeing what comes after this. Is it more barracks or is it a second factory? As that second factory play is kind of what Cure was showing, right? With a lot of Widow Mines. And Clem was going to do this in one of the DreamHack matches on this map, but then he won before he really got kicking. So, yeah, we'll see. That's what we're paying attention to. That's what Elazer would love to actually know, but hard to scout unless you're going to get that Overlord speed. Right now, he's just kind of figuring that if there's going to be pressure, and there should be, it's going to be that 16 Marine drop at like 6:30. Actually, earlier than that with this build, right? I was thinking of Soul's build. Which had a surprisingly late push. Well, I guess it was a push, wasn't it? Oh, okay, whatever. This isn't an analysis stream. It's a commentary stream. Point is, he is going to have a drop that he can do. And I guess 5:30, yeah, that's what it is. 5:30 or 6, doesn't matter. Point is, that's what Elazer's thinking. Like, one of the problems of the 2-1-1, as we know off of two bases, right? What Byun was doing back in the day was that it was so easy to identify. That as soon as a Zerg player saw no Hellions, they'd be like, okay, drone until 445, build Queens consistently, and then build Lings. About, 16, 20 Lings. And then for the second part, build a Baneling nest and have Banelings ready to go. And it was just so predictable. And people started adding on Hellions and whatever, but kind of the same thing here. If you can get such good information like Elazer just got, you want to push the envelope. You want to be like, okay, drone until this moment, then get those Lings. When it comes to dealing with Clem, though, I gotta imagine it's always a little bit more frightening. Just like it was more frightening against Byun. The 2-1-1 was kind of already falling out of fashion for a lot of Terrans, but Byun was like, nope, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna win with it, too. I'm gonna win with my first push. And I can guarantee you that these Dark and Rogue and Sue and all these Zergs weren't dying to most other people's first push with the 2-1-1, but micro, it's a thing. In this case, Clem not really able to show anything. Queens and Lings were available. Creep spread was there. Elazer going to be going into on 1, centrifugal hooks, and very quick burrow, which I love to see. I'd love burrowed Banelings to be an actual goal, but despite seeing some pretty cool burrowed Banelings every now and again, there's highlights from the 10 years of StarCraft where burrowed Banelings have been a thing. It never really stuck as a thing. And, people occasionally go into Reddit and be like, well, why isn't burrowed Banelings a thing? Isn't it really good? You'd think so. You think 100 in a game where it's gonna go to 4 and 5 bases would be totally worth it. But let me tell you what, alright? As someone who's tried burrowed Banelings very poorly, I'm not a good Zerg. and who's watched a lot of Starcraft. Ooh, Burrow never really comes off that way. Never actually does as much as you think it will. I think it's actually far more useful in terms of run-bys and harassment for the Lings to be able to burrow than it is to try and actually force burrowed banelings into your play. One day, I think it'll be a common sight, you know? But, yeah, right now, burrowed banelings don't actually... They don't get the clips as much as they used to, or... Can't even say that. They rarely get clips. Would be cool, though. It's always funny because burrowed banelings, for instance, would love to set up right here. If Elazer is going to continue creep spreading, it's not going to have that same effect. Clem also might be a little more on guard against it. He did get burrowed banelings in that first game. We see that Clem is going into bio. He is now going for a bunch of pushes. He did not go into a quick second factory, but rather is building tanks even. And getting a fairly quick third factory. So that's going to be a lot of factory production. But not the mass widow mines and the drops that we saw from Liqueur. Just 2 double drops. And one of them going to find a 4th base. Yikes! Gets out of there alive. Very ouch for Elazer. Not the end of the world, as not much else is going to be happening. And it looks like now with the supply he has, he'll be able to split correctly, just as to keep tabs on the actual move out. But it does suck. Hive's on the way, 2-2, finishing up his Hydra upgrades. With Hydras, you gotta expect lurkers, and Clem should definitely be mentally preparing for lurkers. He's got 2-2 about halfway done, 4th CC being denied by a cheeky burrowed Ling. As I said, that's probably the best use of it. And Clem is maxed out, so... with 2-2 about 80% done, I guess that might be when we see a push, almost like, you know, we usually would say pre-hive push, we say pre-ultra push. Well, nowadays, we might even be saying pre-lurker push, pre-lurker upgrade push, I guess, to be even more specific. And Clem is going to go ahead and push, so his 2-2 ideally will finish before an engagement actually happens. But there's a lot of creep spread to clean up. There's a lot of chances now for Elazer to do his run-bys, set up his surrounds. I love this Ling trying to scout. Now, burrowed units do not have much vision, as you can see here, but it is still scouting. And this, a guy did this to me way back in the day, like 2011. I remember playing on a map. That's Terran. And, oh, those are banelings! God, I thought they were Lings. God, son of a, second time I missed it. Anyways, but I gotta say it was really annoying because they can see enough to be obnoxious. There's the run by I was talking about. It's gonna drop on top of tanks, widow mines, SCVs, maybe grab a 5th base. Also trying to envelop Clem's army, hoping that Clem wasn't paying attention. Clem was actually trying to evacuate, but he still has time to burrow his widow mines and actually is bringing this back onto Elazer. I think Elazer's a little over-eager, maybe? I mean, it's a bit of a wash, I suppose. Quite even, though the Hydra's now dying to medevac and Marines. Oh, that was awfully close. But Elazer probably thought, like, oh, I caught him on siege, I caught him on burrowed, I'm gonna catch him with a big surround, and all of those things sounded fantastic, but just maybe not quite off guard. Clem was still able to burrow many of his widow mines, and then also maybe a little mistimed on some of that surround, right? It was always gonna be awkward as a lot of the surround was coming in off of creep. But anyways, as I said, a bit of a wash towards the end. Elazer is still on a decent army supply, still looking to take more run-bys, buy more time, so that he can get to his lurkers and, most importantly, get to his range upgrade, which he is about to finish. Trino Glands is also on the way, looking for more opportunities to get around the map and do harassment, as we are getting into that late-game TVZ. Cracklings can take down planetaries if the Terran is not paying attention. And there is the burrow speed for the lurkers as well. Now, Clem, I guess you could even argue, is one of the most experienced Terran players against this style, since it seemed like it was always him and Raynor playing against each other, while Raynor was, I don't know, seemingly perfecting it. I don't want to credit either one of them to being the innovators or being the best, you know, just straight up, but I will say that they were one of the best and one of the first to really push it as a best of, as opposed to just a one-off thing, right? But anywho, Clem is experienced against it, and he's experienced against lurkers, usually against the best Zerg player in the world, Raynor, depending on the season. So we'll see how Elazer is able to use it against Clem. Clem getting a nice concave as he tries to defend his planetary. Planetary still goes down, but he's going to take a couple of lurkers with him. as well as clear up the Lings. But that was still, I think, a net win for Elazer. He got the command center and he got 21 SCVs. I mean, the lurkers are quite expensive though, so it's okay, all right. I do think it was good because it pulled Clem all the way back as well, giving Elazer a lot of time to breathe, not have to deal with harassment, and rebuild those lurkers that he lost. Which did he? Doesn't look like he's about to lose another one too. So he lost 5, and he's not rebuilding any. It's a little bit scary. Lurker, you're supposed to be dead. What are you doing, buddy? What are you doing? Wow, okay. Yeah, Lurker's gonna survive, apparently. Finally, target firing it down with the tanks. Elazer getting a little overzealous, hoping that this opponent didn't have a scan. Seems like you don't really want to bank on that or not to take the engagement, but just saw an opportunity. Wasn't quite there. Clem had enough. And Elazer's forced to pull back. Tries to go for a run by, but is caught in the middle. Clem was very quick to replace that 5th command center and is also going ahead and taking the 6th base and the Rich Vespian Geyser. It's less about the Rich Vespian Geyser, although Clem is starting to add on some very expensive gas units. Ghost, Liberator, right, just in general is going to take a lot. But it's definitely less about that and more about the positioning. You're going to slowly encroach into Elazer's side of the map. And that's what's kind of nice about Death Aura. Some other maps, it's a very different scenario. The farther you start to invest into bases, 4th, 5th, 6th, the more you just get pulled left, right, left, right. Death Aura does have a pretty solid pushing path. And while the left side then does open up, you do still have the opportunity to siege up tanks, siege up Liberators, and actually take care of it. Where again, some of the maps it's a lot more difficult. Another concave here, a couple of snipes as well. Is going to clean up most of the lurkers, and that was a bit questionable. But more importantly, it was drawing Clem's attention away. So on the right side, just a handful of units able to push back this would-be planetary and maybe even grab it. Just a couple of Hydras. That would be... that'd be a really nice grab for them. Looks like this base also went down. Okay, so I really wasn't paying attention. Holy crap, how did that go down? And Clem starting to have a little bit of trouble. He is pushing deep onto creep, hoping to find his opponent without a lot of banelings. And hey, there have not been many banelings in this game. 8 are in production right now, but that's not the scariest point. It's about the lurkers. Does he have scans? How many lurkers are available? One actually gets right on top of those tanks. Snipes going down, sorry, but a lot on top of the overseers. Was that actually the right call? He doesn't take out these 2 lurkers on the backside and seems to have run out of scans, so he takes a base down. Was that enough for Clem to get revenge? He's going to pick up and try and leave with very, very weak medevacs. But it looks like he might be able to escape. He's also trying to expand, but without that being a planetary, it's not going to be a safe spot. Those Vipers are closing in. He's going to try and spread his medevacs. 1 is grabbed, 2 is grabbed, and both of them are going to fall. He's going to land and is reinforce. Can he actually do this? Scan reveals that single lurker, but he can't take care of it. A single snipe went off, and that was going to be good enough. More snipes on top of Hydras this time. And a couple more snipes are available, maybe for the Vipers. There he goes and grabs one of them. Tanks also repositioning. Finally gonna be able to grab this base as he drops out the SCV and builds a missile turret because he is starting to run out of scans. He's got 3 orbitals, but these will probably turn into a couple more. Exactly that. 5 orbitals now. And the rest have to be planetaries because you can't, unless you're also pushing with a command center, with an orbital command, I should say. I mean, yeah, you can't just have an orbital out when your army's not. It's just not gonna go well. Not against a Zerg player. Not against any race, honestly. 6 more lurkers as Elazer replaces his bottom left base. That was killed a little bit ago, but also has this middle right finally droning. Scan's gonna reveal that, and that makes you a little bit scared. I think for a little while you're like, oh, he does know about it, and then you get scanned and you're like, oh shit. And while typically a couple of lurkers are pretty good at defending this type of thing, it's like, if they are in the know, right? If they actually have scans in their pocket, yeah, 2 lurkers would just be a waste of resources to try and defend this. It's a lot of Clem's army, not all of it, but a lot of it. A couple of Widowmines, 1 tank, a couple of ghosts looking for the snipes. Always a bit awkward though, they share the same range, right? And it's some of the reason why he's been targeting the overseers, I thought was because he has ghost cloak, but he does not actually. Oh, there it is. Okay, so here's the thing though. Without the overseers being in that surveillance mode, or whatever it's called for overseers, the lurkers are like tanks, right? The lurkers don't have as much sight as they do range. So that's what Clem's trying to get rid of. It doesn't really matter if the army's going to jump on you anyways, like we see here. But if it's one of those stalemates, you know, like a tank war basically, then yes, the Ghost taking out that vision is very, very, very important. Getting some snipes, getting an EMP. Blinding Cloud goes down, but it's easily moved away from. Liberator's not coming in. There's actually no anti-air, no Hydras, no Vipers, no Corruptors, and the Lurkers are forced to retreat. Lings jumping on top of Marauders and tanks. Doesn't look like it's going so hot. Hydra's trying to get an orbital. Probably shouldn't actually be able to grab it. All of the Lurkers have died? No, they're repositioning for them now, joining in on the fun. Getting onto that high ground, getting into that choke. Burrow them, for the love of God, that's exactly what they do. Liberator's not quite sieged up, but the choke is awkward for both parties, to be honest. There she goes, but then gets immediately sniped by the Hydras, just enough to snipe that Liberator down. And we have a little tug of war right around this section. I do believe it has finally gone in favor of Elazer, though. He's also going to grab the orbital. Just a handful of Hydras. Going to grab this orbital, finally. They very nearly grabbed that command center, 5 minutes ago. But I guess, even 4 Hydras can be quite a lot of DPS. Clem finally breaks up the ramp, but he was really hoping to do that before he lost his command center. Now he has replacement command centers, and it's still a pretty even game, so not quite down to the, oh god, now I'm lifting my main and my natural, but we could get there. Elazer's finished up 2-2-3, about to have +3 melee, so real, true cracklings for his Lings. Lurkers have been replaced, 9 of them now defending this base. It's going to be really hard for Clem to crack. He's got 7 tanks, no Liberators, trying to replace his Ghosts. Thought about getting a Concave, but went, you know what, just kidding. That's a lot of Lurkers. Don't forget that Clem is secure on his left side, at least for now, and it looks like Elazer just didn't realize it. I think the base was lifted, if I recall correctly, but you might have forgotten that it's actually over there. And with it having a planetary and a couple of tanks, I'm not sure it's going to be broken. A couple of Banelings off to the right do kill 12 SCVs, but don't get the command center. Building armor wouldn't be a factor against Banelings, but just a note in general, building armor not done. Getting a Concave on top of what is mostly Lurkers seems like it might be a good idea, and then suddenly Lurkers are like, no, actually, you think it will be, but it isn't. If there's 5 Lurkers, oh yeah, go ahead. Concave all you want on top of them, but when it's 13 Lurkers, oh, I don't know about that yet. Actually, Lurkers moving over to the left side. This would have been a fantastic time to try and jump on top, but it's more down to the siege line. So he wants to snipe the Lurkers if possible. If he can't, then sniping the Overseer, then the Lurkers. Okay, he's getting a couple of snipes. Counter abducts, however, gonna get 2 Ghosts. Also drawing some of the army in. You gotta repeatedly tell them to hold position. Finally, the Overseer goes down, but I don't think he has any more snipes. So a bit awkward there. Lurkers went off to the left side, as I guess he remembered, like, that's still happening, or maybe he meant to go into the 3rd and found the 6th, and, well, either way, his Lurkers actually got shut down thanks to tanks that I'm guessing he just didn't expect. Just didn't realize tanks would be covering that. A couple more Lurkers go down on the right. Tanks actually getting jumped on by Lings. 3 of them are gonna go down. And oh my god, Elazer's gonna tap out. Clem, a little too strong on the tug of war on that right side. Past the ramp where he lost that orbital, he actually was starting to win all of the engagements. Not in supreme fashion, but yes, he was winning them. And Elazer just looked at his bank at one point and was like, you know what?